Hey guys, welcome to Saiyan Saga. So in today's video we are gonna see, what if Goku's enemies became his allies? Before starting, if you're a true Dragon Ball fan, don't miss out, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode. Your support helps bring this alternate DBZ universe to life. Let's power up together. This story is, by Goodbrand98. Now without wasting any more time let's dive in. On the far-off planet of Vados, a war had been underway over the span of 3 days. The Vaitian people had fought hard. The whole of the species was fighting tooth and nail, a whopping 2 billion people fighting for survival. Their bodies, naturally as hard as the stones around them, allowed them what they believed a defensive advantage, as well as the camouflage to hide amongst the rocky surface of their world. Their greatest inventors had worked tirelessly on weapons capable of piercing even titanium, and tear through it like paper. The brutal sun pounding down made life on the planet difficult for anyone that weren't built for survival in extreme temperatures. They were the natural apex of planet Vados. And yet, the apex simply was not enough. Each passing day, more and more Vaitians fell. Their bodies crumbling like sand under each incoming blow. Their weapons doing seemingly less than nothing on their foes. The mighty kingdoms, spires of obsidian might and diamond brilliance were falling. What could it have been, to stand before the Vaitian rule and win? 3 men. A mere 3 warriors had crashed their way in, and in the span of 3 days brought the population of 2 billion to be something closer to 2 million. What to the Vaitian people is the most horrifying moment of their life? To these men, it's Sunday. They all wore strange armor that clung to their body, seeming almost like plastic, yet remaining hardened against any strike sent their way. Upon each of their faces, adorning an eye, is a strange device that beeps and whirs with data of the battlefield, showing nearby threats to the trio. Not like anything here was a threat. The unmistakable sign of tails were wrapped around each of their waists, like some kind of bizarre belt that was physically attached to them. Currently relaxing from a day of conquest and destruction, the men were each sat somewhere amongst the rubble. At the top of a destroyed spire was a rather short fellow with hair that spikes directly upward, his legs crossed as he stares down at the work before him. This man has an air of utter control about him. He was, after all, the leader of this band of killers. Sat not too far, chewing on some meat from the beasts these people had been making use of, is a bald man who lets out a hearty laughter that causes another, weaker building to come crumbling down as well. And at the very bottom of the spire, remaining standing upright, was a rather prideful-looking individual taking note of nearby energy readings, his long hair flowing slightly behind him. Raditz, status report. The short leader barks from above, his voice was demanding and rough. The one with long hair, Raditz, flinched a bit at the sound, stopping his readings before trying to regain some level of confidence. He lets out a small laughter as he looks up, holding outstretched his hand with the index and pointer finger raised to the air. Not much longer before this planet is ours, Raditz declares in a slimy hiss of a voice. It would have been ours much sooner if you'd actually done your job, Raditz. The short man, Vegeta, speaks again, his voice dripping with sheer contempt for the weaker being. Sorry. Raditz whimpers out, lowering his hands back to his sides, and his head to look at the ground. And that's why everyone calls you, Raditz the runt, the larger bald one, Nappa, interjects as he chomps down on the meaty piece of beast. Raditz clutched his hands into fists, tightening his hold so hard he could feel his hands beginning to bleed as his nails dug into his palms. He hated that stupid title. It's sheer mockery, and he has to just sit here and take it. He's a warrior just like them, he fought as well. Does he not have the right to be proud of the amount he could do? He was one of the last 3 remaining Saiyans. Things'll be different on the next planet. Raditz tries to quickly assure, only to be scoffed off by Nappa, who continues enjoying his feast. Vegeta would stand up, beginning to walk down, his aura pulsing and fluctuating slowly to remind Raditz of the sheer difference between them. Raditz saw his scouter's numbers go up and up, until it hit 18,000. Mark my words, Vegeta spoke in such an apathetic voice, if you screw up again, I will kill you. With that, Vegeta walked past Raditz, and fired a beam directly into a wall, killing a man who was hiding against it. Raditz bit his lip now. Would Vegeta really reduce the remaining Saiyan population to a mere 2? Wait. 1. 2. Raditz's face lit up with realization. Maybe someone to help even the numbers between the lower class and Vegeta. Wait. I just remembered something. Raditz's voice raised in volume and pitch. The sheer change caused Vegeta to turn quickly, and Nappa to raise his head from the meat he was clutching. I think my little brother, Kakarot, was sent to a different planet. I'll bet you he's still there. Nappa visibly lit up at the news of another Saiyan being out there. If there were a few stragglers out among the stars, maybe there was hope for them after all. His expression dimmed a bit as he saw Vegeta's face. You have a brother? I didn't think there were any Saiyans left besides us. Vegeta pried deeper into the subject. If he joins us, the rest of the universe would be ours in no time. Raditz tried to assure, lifting his hands up and about to go into a detailed explanation. The fact he's your brother doesn't exactly fill me with confidence. Vegeta interrupts as he walks up and grabs Raditz's chin, glaring right into his eyes. But, what planet was he sent to? Raditz froze for a moment. He could see intrigue in the prince's eyes. A chill ran down the low-class warrior's spine as he felt the weight of this entire planet suddenly crushing him. But he knew this was the one chance to finally prove his worth. Moreover, this is finally a reason to pick him up. I think it's called Earth, Raditz explained, overpronouncing the A in it. Earth, huh? Well, we may as well get moving. Vegeta states as he lets go of Raditz. We'll come back for this place when we snag up Bardock's second bastard. Wait, Vegeta, Nappa interjects. Frieza wants this planet in 4 business days. Let's just let Raditz go get him ready, all caught up. Make a little family reunion out of it, and he can just swing by planet 414 with him. Vegeta paused for a moment at that. Yes, indeed, Frieza will want this planet done with, and if they leave now, well, it'd look weird. Better to just rule Raditz as a casualty of war, then have him come back with a bonus later. It'd be a month-long ride on these cramped pods anyway, even with the nav system. He relents and sighs out. Raditz. You're going on a solo mission. Do not fail me. Vegeta's voice was clear and commanding. Come back with that brat. If anything goes wrong, I am murdering both you and your brother. Raditz nodded, bowing fully down, feeling a strange sense of relief to be away from these two for some time, but moreover, to prove he's not just a useless runt, that he truly was a Saiyan elite. Even a low power level child like Kakarot no doubt has grown to be valuable in a fight during his time on Earth. He would fly up and away to where his pod had landed. His next stop, some strange backwater alien planet deemed low enough priority for a baby with a power level of 2. For Raditz, this was a chance to really change everything about his life, but for Nappa and Vegeta, it was just a Sunday. What felt like a month had passed on the journey from Vados to Earth. The normal procedure was to stop at any planets along the way to stock up. Raditz, however, could not afford to stop. He'd make a single brief stop just to keep himself from starving, but he still could not hold it in his stomach. His mission was clear, and if he failed he'd die. Not only him though, Kakarot would also die. Kakarot. Raditz would be lying if he told anyone he forgot about Kakarot. His mother asked him to never forget Kakarot, and not a day has gone by where the thought of going to get him didn't come across his mind. Previous attempts at convincing the pair had all but failed. They never actually listened to a damned word he would tell them. But ultimately, the greater fear was the hope of convincing Vegeta that Kakarot was worth the trouble. His baby brother had a power level of 2, seen as trash to throw at a low-priority planet. He wasn't important, and neither was this Earth. It's doubtful Kakarot had succeeded, but Raditz needed to believe in him. Needed to believe Kakarot earned his pride as a Saiyan. This was an opportunity to do something he should have done the second planet Vegeta was destroyed. Raditz took a deep breath as his thoughts were tearing apart at him. He tried to throw aside the doubt in his brother. He had to have become stronger since then, no doubt, maybe not close to even Raditz, but stronger no doubt. The Saiyans have to stick together, they have to. Or else we'll fade into obscurity, Raditz verbally reminded himself. You okay there, bud? Nappa's voice came from the scouter, causing Raditz to pause. Nappa? You're listening in? Raditz muttered quickly. It's nothing, I'm just... No, I just figured you need to be checked in on. Nappa explained in a more calm voice, himself sitting alone in his pod as Vegeta was asleep. Want to talk about it? What? Raditz's voice cracked. He was used to being demeaned, being yelled at, but hearing Nappa sound almost considerate. It was bizarre. No, I'm just focusing on my mission. Right. The mission. Nappa let out a small laugh. You're worried, I get it. Never really had much family stuff. My old man was an elite guard, was so happy when his kid had a power level of 2000. But, no. Not many of us left, now. One wrong move, and 3 could be cut down to 2, or, hell, even 1. Raditz felt his stomach immediately drop again. In truth, there could be way more spread out on infiltration missions, unless they all failed. The fact of the matter is, even if they find Kakarot, the Saiyan race is more than likely doomed to extinction, because the 4 of them are all male. Even now they're floundering to not die out and disappear under the thumb of their cruel ruler. You think I don't know that? Raditz spoke quickly, sweating and panicking as he let the terror set in. My brother's possibly our last chance, my last chance. He's not just a mission though, Nappa, you wouldn't get it. You said it yourself, your father wanted a winner. My family was different. Raditz. Nappa spoke quickly. What I'm saying, pause for effect, is we need to make this work, regardless of how we have to do it. Now, don't let Vegeta hear you getting sentimental. Just call up if you need anything. Raditz stopped for a moment. He was now able to see the planet really taking shape in his vision. This whole thing felt different. Nappa was normally boisterous, violent, or just plain blunt. For a moment, he thought Nappa was suggesting a coup of some kind, but that wouldn't make sense. Nappa is Vegeta's caretaker after all. Good luck, the Saiyan race depends on you. Thank you, Nappa. The communications ended there. The Saiyan race is dependent on Raditz. Vegeta would never admit it himself, but as it stands the lower class will outweigh him, the prince of all Saiyans. The pod would fly closer and closer, until it finally crashed in the middle of a large empty field. A crater immediately formed from the sheer contact, but the pod remains undamaged somehow. And the pod opens slowly to allow him to lift himself out. The sight was rather beautiful, and more importantly, full of life. Raditz didn't even need to start up the scouter to figure that out. He would quietly scoff to himself at the realization. Seems Kakarot had failed his mission, or he's found something of value here worth keeping alive. That was until he heard a caulking behind him. Hey, this is my property, and you'll get your, space, ship, outta here. A quivering weak voice spoke behind Raditz. Raditz would turn to face the man. An earthling of some kind, and in his hands was a weapon. Some kind of primitive earth weapon. A laugh escapes Raditz as the scouter comes up with the level of the man before him. 5. Now, personally, I don't think something like that will work. Raditz explains as he begins to walk over towards the man. But if you're feeling confident, I'll come a bit closer. If you take a shot, you'd better not miss, okay, sport? After a bit of time, Raditz had grabbed the gun's barrel and held it right to his head. Grinning and tightening his grip, the sound of the metal warping could be heard as clear as day. The farmer, terrified, pulled the trigger, but far faster than he could. Raditz twisted the barrel, causing the gun to erupt. The farmer was sent flying back as Raditz just laughed and flew up into the air, scanning the area around him, until he caught onto a power level of 322. He didn't bother checking on the man, and just flew in the direction of that power level. In the middle of the desert, the mighty heir of King Piccolo was surveying the area for a possible castle. A domain for his demonic glory. Majunior, or simply, Piccolo, was simply plodding ahead. Trying to get the logistics all figured out when he sensed it. Someone was approaching him. Someone that had an energy so vast. Could it be Goku? No way. He quickly turned his attention towards the force nearing. Slowly the creature lowered down. He looked human, but he had a strange fur tail around his waist, and a device mounted on his face. His hair going down to the back of his thighs. The man was smirking, until he landed and saw Piccolo. His face changed into a scowl. MMMHHHH, you certainly aren't Kakarot, but perhaps you could help me find him. The strange individual spoke in an icy cold voice. Tell me, Green Man, have you ever heard of someone named Kakarot? Has a tail, black hair, no doubt an incredible level of power. As a matter of fact, no I don't. You're barking up the wrong tree. Piccolo quickly retorted, keeping a defensive stance. Well, that's very unfortunate. As that means you are not of use to me, which means you'll have to be exterminated. Raditz said, smirking again as he began to walk towards Piccolo. Nice try, Piccolo shouts as he jumps into the air. raining down a torrent of yellow energy right onto the man below him, pumping loads of ki directly into his target. Raditz allowed the attack to continue, waiting for the green man to stop trying before he suddenly grabbed hold of Piccolo by his face, and then slamming him into the ground. Once like this, he stomped his foot onto Piccolo's chest and raised one hand in the air. Purple energy forming all at once. Unfortunately for you, that was the greatest mistake you will be allowed to make, Green Man. Now, I'll just delete you. Have a fun vacation in hell. Raditz spoke in a far more gleeful voice before his scouter picked up something. A power level of 334? Not much higher than this one, but it's better than wasting my time here on a slug. With that, Raditz seemed to disappear in a flash of purple, leaving Piccolo collapsed, gasping for air, and staring up at the sky. That was everything he had, and it did nothing to the would-be attacker. The only thing that spared Piccolo's life was him losing interest. And the way he's going. Is he headed towards Kame House? Kame House was bustling with life once more, for the first time in what to those entering felt like years. A bit of a reunion was underway, filling the small island with laughter and conversation. The turtle hermit, Master Roshi, was busy preparing a meal for his students, humming softly to himself as he set the table. The scent of freshly grilled fish wafted through the air. Arriving first was Krillin, the bald, noseless martial artist who had been one of Roshi's very first students. He stepped out of a small boat, waving energetically to his old master with a wide smile on his face. Right behind him came Bulma, her vibrant blue hair catching the sunlight as she parked her sleek, high-tech vehicle on the shore. She jumped out, adjusting her capsule corp jacket, excited to catch up with everyone. The most recent to arrive was Goku, his familiar orange GI fluttering in the breeze as he landed softly on the sand. Someone small clinging to him from behind. Goku. It's been a while. Glad to see you, man. Krillin was first to run over to see how his friend's doing. Yeah, how long's it been? Must have been the World Martial Art Tournament. Goku keeps a smile on his face as he glances about. Where's Tien and Yamcha? Well, Tien's probably busy at the crane school. Krillin explained, needing to rub his chin to think. And Yamcha. Before he could finish, Krillin looked down, tilting his head. Was that a child with Goku? Was that child wearing a Dragon Ball on his hat? The boy hugged more tightly into Goku's leg. Hey there, little guy. Goku. Think there's a kid clinging to you. Krillin spoke up. Oh, yeah, this is Gohan. He's my son, Goku explains as he decides to hold Gohan up. Say hi. Now the three could get a good look at Goku's son. He's wearing a rather well-made outfit, no doubt something Chi-Chi had sewn up, but that Dragon Ball basically puts a bullseye on the kid. A kid, huh? Well, hi there, little fella. Bulma speaks as she quickly moves in to get in the boy's face. My name's Bulma. We're all friends of your dad. Did you know your dad's a hero? Gohan would cling tighter onto his father's GI, almost burying his head until he heard that last bit. His tail momentarily stood at attention with that comment. He would then turn his head to look at Bulma. Am my dad's a hero? Gohan questioned as he looked on in awe. He's learned a number of things, but not that little fact. Yeah. One of the biggest heroes in the world. Bulma assures quickly as she smiles to him. He's beaten would-be dictators both big and small. He's made friends out of enemies wherever he goes. Roshi adds in a jolly tone as he continues grilling. And one of the biggest threats he saved us from was a giant green man. A genuine demon. Krillin continued to pile on the praise. Gohan stared in awe at the thought of it. He's heard that his dad was strong, but he never heard anything about this. Then his mind would be drawn to the growling of his stomach, and the delicious smell of barbecue. This would cause the group to all begin laughing. Well, come on, little man. I got some done if you're hungry now, Roshi shouts. Gohan's eyes lit up at the mention of food, his earlier awe momentarily replaced by hunger. His tail flicked happily behind him as he looked up at Goku. The father sets down his son, and pats his head, grin right on his face. Go on, don't need to ask my permission, just his. As Gohan eagerly ran over to Roshi, Krillin couldn't help but chuckle. Kid's got an appetite just like his old man, Roshi says as he wipes a tear from his eye. Roshi handed over a large grilled fish to Gohan, who stared at it in amazement before diving in. The sight of Gohan eating so enthusiastically brought warmth to the group, the earlier tension melting away. While the rest are probably going to be late, that's no excuse to sit around and not eat the finished food. Unfortunately for the group, this enjoyment would be cut short. Goku felt a sudden shift within the air. He had noticed an energy on the planet, but now it's not too far to fully sense. It was here. And it was malicious. His cheerful expression faded, and he stood up abruptly, his eyes narrowing as he looked towards the sky. Wait. Something's coming, and it's close. The group fell silent, all eyes turning to Goku in confusion. What do you mean, Goku? Bulma asked, her tone concerned. Before Goku could answer, a shadow slowly came onto the island, covering the sunlight from touching the group. The group would all look up to see a man standing in the air. His arms were crossed as he stares down at them, the device on his head giving him information about the whole group. Altogether they don't even make a power level of 700, and the majority of it was coming from the black-haired one in the orange GI. Finally. Hello. May I come down? The man calls from above, that wicked smirk remaining plastered on his face. What do you want? Goku questions as he gets in a defensive stance, Krillin and Roshi ushering Gohan to get behind them. Well, that one's rather easy. I'm here for you, Kakarot. Raditz speaks as he slowly lowers, still hovering just above the ground. You got the wrong guy, my name's Goku. Goku affirms as he holds his stance. Might want to look somewhere else. Oh, am I really off? As Raditz speaks, he allows his tail to slowly unravel from around his waist. Everyone stares at this new revelation in horror. A tail? Goku was no longer sporting his, but it looked almost exactly like the one this man has. And they even have Gohan for reference. Now, may I explain? The man explains slowly, in a calm and almost mocking way. Kakarot, you're not of this planet. You are a Saiyan, one of the many, one of the select few remnants of proud warriors, hailing from planet Vegeta. The words hit like a shockwave, leaving everyone stunned. Goku's stance faltered for a moment, but his eyes remained locked on Raditz, trying to process what was being said. Behind him, Bulma, Krillin, and Roshi exchanged nervous glances. Gohan, peeking out from behind everyone to look at the man. Raditz and Gohan for a moment lock eyes before averting their respective gazes back to Goku. You're saying I'm some kind of space alien? That's not possible. Goku tries to affirm, returning to holding his stance. I've lived here my entire life. You certainly have. That's because of your mission. You see, when a planet is of great power, Saiyan adults are sent for conquest. But when a planet is considered minuscule in comparison, we send our young. You were one of the smallest and meekest, so you got sent to the weakest possible planet. Your job was conquest, and you couldn't even get that right. Raditz speaks as his grin widens, he's trying to force this one. But it seems you forgot your mission, that won't do at all. Goku remained in shock. He was trying to think of some way around this, but it was beginning to slowly make more sense. Grandpa Gohan found him out in the middle of the forest as a wild and untamed child. As his gaze lowers, he realizes that Raditz's feet still have yet to even touch the ground. The man remains floating, as if ready to blitz at a moment's notice. He then glares back up. And what do you want with me? Goku's voice was far more rigid sounding, he was ready for a fight. Well, truth be told, brother. You can count how many Saiyans are left on one hand. Raditz allowed both bombshells to hit at once. Our planet's been destroyed by a meteor, and I've been tasked with retrieving whoever I can. Brother? Krillin questions out loud. You're Goku's brother? Raditz felt his Saiyan pride get poked at when the small bald one with a power level of 100 would ever decided to interject. He however needed to keep his cool for now. Yes. I am Raditz. And you, Kakarot, are my baby brother. As Raditz gives this revelation, everyone stares in shock. Silence filled the air, one could cut the tension with a knife. Goku wasn't weighing his options, he was just debating on if they could gather the Dragon Balls fast enough for a resurrection after the stunt he's about to pull. I don't care. The Earth is my home. I'll protect it, Goku shouts out, flying into action and charging Raditz. Wait, that's how you pronounce it? Raditz questioned before an elbow made contact with his chest. Oh ho ho. Poor little man. Poor little baby crying in his cradle, keeping all the others awake. Before Goku could even blink, Raditz had disappeared, coming back behind Goku and slamming his fists right into the shoulder blades of the younger man. To Goku, it felt like he just got his entire back crushed, causing him to flip and hit the ground hard. Gohan tried to run to his dad, only to be grabbed by Bulma, hoping to keep him from being thrown in danger. "Daddy!" Gohan shouts out, beginning to cry. "Come now, Kakarot, don't make me have to make this a fratricide." Raditz talked down to his younger, weaker sibling. Roshi and Krillin glanced at each other before nodding. They figured something has to be done about this. The two would suddenly jump to have distance between them. This was also to give angling so they wouldn't hit Goku. "Kamehameha," the two chanted in unison as energy gathered around their hands. Raditz was ready to stomp Kakarot more, but then his scouter showed the power levels of the Earthlings rising. His head shot up quickly to see the pair gathering energy. Not that this would stop him. He lifted his two hands out, pointed at each of the Earthlings. "Ha!" The pair shout at the top of their lungs and fire the blue beams of energy at Raditz. "Watch this," Raditz says as purple energy easily gathered in both hands, firing directly at the pair. The beams would clash, but as Roshi and Krillin were both trying to keep up their concentration, it was easy to tell that Raditz wasn't even breaking a sweat. They'd have to just dodge out of the way as the beams fly in the directions of other islands, and just blowing them to smithereens. "If you lot are done," Raditz speaks casually, as though that was mere poultry sparring while the two bald men were exhausted on the ground. He then reached down and picked up Goku by the collar. "Now then, Kakarot. I have a solution for you. I demand 100 Earthling corpses. You can just leave them around the island, I'll count them all." Goku would attempt a headbutt, only to be thrown back into the ground. Seems that's not happening. He needs to be more properly broken first, it seems. Gohan's crying continuing as Raditz found himself becoming annoyed. He stared in the direction of Bulma and Gohan, his hand raising slowly to blast that noise out of existence. That was until the crying became something closer to screaming. The numbers on Raditz's scouter began to rise quickly. 200, 300, 700, 1300, and without warning, Bulma was easily knocked aside as Gohan rushed directly at Raditz. Gohan was certainly some kind of danger to Raditz. Luckily for Raditz, he wasn't stuck fighting anything of great threat to him. He managed to just barely dodge out of the way, injuring his left arm, before the right one grabs onto Gohan's tail. A yelp had escaped the small boy before his body goes limp, and he begins to cry. "Your brat is something wild, Kakarot," Raditz stated as he felt his numb arm trying to flex a bit. "So, I offer a trade. I'll leave you be, and I take the kid." "No, please. Don't do this," Goku shouts as he remains pinned under Raditz's boot. "I'll give you a day," Raditz says in a slow voice. "So, in 1 day's time, bring me those corpses. And I'll consider bringing you along, otherwise, this kid's coming with me to see the stars." Goku felt rage beginning to boil up inside of himself, but he just couldn't do it. After some time, Raditz floats up into the sky, a smirk remaining on his face before he disappears with Gohan. All Goku could do was try to catch his breath as the man left with his boy, and curse himself for being too weak to protect anyone from this new menace. "We need to do something," Bulma shouts to Roshi and Krillin. "What exactly could we have done there?" "Die," Roshi mutters out, lowering his head in defeat. "We know all the strongest people in the world, and you can't think of anything?" Bulma shouts at the old man. "Goku's son was just kidnapped. Maybe I can offer some help there." A green man lowered and landed without a second thought. "Piccolo? Why would you want to help us?" Krillin muttered out, dealing with some tambourine-related flashbacks the whole time he managed to spit that out. As it stands, it sounds like Mr. Big Spiky and Weird intends to destroy this planet. Can't exactly rule an Earth that gets destroyed. Piccolo bluntly states. "So I guess you could say we all have something to gain from bumping off that space porcupine. You get to be the hero, and I get to conquer the world myself later." Krillin chuckled nervously, deciding to not engage with the hostile demon. Everyone was standing about for a moment unsure. That was until Goku stood up and managed to catch his breathing a bit. He needs training, but he can't exactly get any training done in a situation like this. Master Roshi did get a light bulb in his head, and decided to go into Kame House to make a few phone calls. "Well, even if we don't trust you, We'll have to just accept that reasoning. Goku breathed out. Otherwise, we're all done for. Hey, Bulma. Could I get the dragon radar? Bulma questioningly looked at Goku for a moment before realizing why. The Dragon Ball on Gohan's hat means that Raditz won't be able to hide at all beforehand. She reached around her pockets before revealing it and tossing it to Goku. With that, he would jump up and stand on the flying Nimbus. What do you think, Piccolo? Can you keep up with the Nimbus? Goku questions. That's a joke, right? Piccolo questions as he floats up. If you intend to make a race, I'll save my energy for the fight at hand. As the two made their way, Raditz had already landed at his pod, grinning slightly as he set Gohan down. The boy was still sniffling, and on the verge of crying again. Raditz glared from his peripheral at Gohan. Stop that noise, runt. Raditz spoke in a growl of a voice. You're only making things worse for yourself. The sound partially subsided, mostly because Gohan was terrified of the man. Raditz would use this silence to open up the pod and just check the dimensions of it. It should be more than enough to hold him and a child. Probably would be better than trying to fit Kakarot in anyway. Not that it'd matter. If Kakarot's a failure and he brings back a sobbing kid, Raditz's grin would turn into a frown. Then all three of them may as well be dead right now. Maybe he can turn this around, or convince Vegeta that the kid is a good investment. Or maybe Earth is a good investment. What is he thinking? He would however detect a pair of power levels getting closer. He sighed and decided to open up communications. This better be good, Raditz. Vegeta's annoyed voice was the first to answer. Things seem to be going a bit south, found a kid. Power level clocked in at 1300. But Kakarot's gone native, let's say. He's protecting the Earth. Wait, I thought you said it was Earth. Nappa interrupted. Yeah, I thought it was that, too. Raditz explained as he paces a bit. Turns out the people on this planet are backwater morons. And it's infected my brother. But their half-breed spawns seem to have strange latent power. So, what? Vegeta's voice dripped with incredulity. Are you suggesting we keep this planet as is? Frustration began to bubble along Raditz's very being. Of course they don't listen to him. They never do. It's always such a problem, and right now they're refusing to see a clear way to save the Saiyan people. No, that's not what I said at all. I'm just suggesting, look, Kakarot and his little friends are approaching. I want this whole thing down for the sake of any useful information about why Earthlings' power levels can fluctuate. You can just blow it up and be done with it. We have no needing for this planet, or the people inside of it. Vegeta continues to speak calmly. I want that fourth Saiyan you insisted on going to get, and I want that planet to die. Nappa had not spoken up at all. He had caught on to what Raditz was considering and he was conflicted. He could see both sides of this argument. On Vegeta's side there's the fact of the Saiyan blood becoming diluted with Earthling blood. But on Raditz's side, well, there's no confirmed way to save the Saiyan race otherwise. Gohan was now staring in confusion at Raditz. He could guess what's going on, but only sort of. Raditz sounds like he's trying to make some kind of an argument against all the death, but whoever was on the other end was not having it. He was hoping to try reasoning with him, but he was just so scared. Why do you want to blow us up? Gohan's voice finally picked up, causing Raditz to snap to the now nearly crying boy again. What did we ever do to you? Raditz stared for a moment, trying to think of something to say. Trying to figure out what this weird feeling in his chest is. The scouter picked up the image of the small boy for Nappa and Vegeta to see it. That boy looked almost like a pure-blooded Saiyan, all right, but Vegeta at the very least remains unmoved. It's not about what happened. It's about power and pride. Raditz begins to explain slowly, almost like he's trying to explain it to himself. The Saiyans are a mighty race of conquerors. We take as we see fit, and unfortunately for you, we saw fit to come to Earth. Hey! Get away from him! Goku shouted as he jumped down from the Nimbus, being followed by the large green man. I'm gonna give you this last chance to leave this planet peacefully. Raditz quietly stared at his brother, then at Gohan, his nephew. He felt something leaking near his eyes. He raised a hand to wipe it off, but when he glanced down and saw it, he clenched his hand into a fist. This was not who he was. This must have been his mother's side coming out of him. He turned slowly and glared directly at Goku and Piccolo. Ready for a fight. Yeah? Why should I believe you? Goku questions. I just wanted you to join because I wanted us to be together. With so few Saiyans left, I felt it proper for us to stick together. But I can see now how serious you are about this planet. Leave. As Raditz admitted, he began to feel tears welling up in his eyes. Goku. Don't listen to him, Piccolo demands angrily, seeing right through it. Unfortunately, Goku couldn't see through it. He let go of the Saiyan's tail and would be immediately knocked aside with Raditz's right arm, his remaining good arm. With that, Raditz stands up and fires a beam at Piccolo to get him to break his stance and dodge out of the way. After that, he began to walk towards Goku, his hand tightening into a fist. Yes, Kakarot. As a matter of fact, I'll leave, and I'll take your child with me. It's only right my nephew knows of his proud heritage. Raditz speaks as he lifts Goku up by his collar, his weaker hand pulling back as he prepares for an open-handed strike. And the arm comes down and hits the rock next to Goku's head. He missed. He raises his hand again, and once again misses. He hisses quietly from the contact. What the devil is happening to him? This must be some strange earth technique. As he realized the fake tears that he managed out were still going, he tries to shout them away, raising his hand to strike down. You don't have to do this. Goku speaks in such a weak voice, blood dripping from his mouth as he tries to smile. Raditz was hit with a memory, being hurt so ferociously by another boy and being in his mother's arms. Raditz, poor boy. You don't have to do this. Jine spoke down as she patched the injuries on his face. But they said we're lower class, that I'll never see Kakarot once he is sent out. Raditz mutters out. That dad's a weakling who's dependent on cheap tactics. While we're not the strongest, I love your father for the strength of his heart, not the strength of his body. Jine assured. And I know that you try to hide that heart, but it's yours now, too. Jine quietly knelt down in order to hold onto and tightly hug Raditz. He held right onto Jine, knowing he's going out for his first official mission soon. He felt like he might never see her again if he lets go. As long as you hold us all in your heart, you can always see us. Jine's voice echoed as Raditz returned to the present. His hand was twitching. He lowered it down and grunted in pain. He can't do it. But he has to. But he can't. What is this? Why did he have to be born to such weak blood? He finally just tossed Goku to the ground and began to walk towards Gohan. He'll just grab the brat and take him. He'll leave this planet. Wait, no, don't take him, please, Goku shouted. Silence. I am doing this for the best for everyone. Raditz finally screamed out, his voice cracking as he does so. You don't know what it's like to have to make tough choices, but I do. I know, Goku mutters out. I know how to make a hard choice. Without warning, Goku grabs onto Raditz, holding him in a full Nelson. Positioning so they're both looking right at Piccolo. Piccolo immediately takes the position and begins to charge the attack once again. What are you doing? Let go of me, Raditz demanded as he struggles against the hold. Piccolo. Now. Goku screams out at the top of his lungs. Do it. What? Raditz shouts, fear washing over his very being. You'll die too. No, I refuse this. I will not let this be how I die. Good job, Goku. I'm sure you'll be back in a year anyways. Piccolo smirks as he speaks, charging up. But you, outsider. You will be sent straight to hell. Special beam cannon. Raditz struggled as hard as he could, before managing to dislocate his damaged arm to slip. The blast would get Goku head on, but Raditz managed to get hit in his right side and arm. He somehow managed to live through that, though he has now lost both of his arms, and he's bleeding pretty badly. He groans out as he tries to stand up. You fool. You thought that would be enough? Raditz shouts out. Goku. A voice calls from above, a flying vehicle making its way. We're here to oh my god. Raditz glared up, trying to charge energy to attack, but then it lands and the bald one came barreling out, running right towards Raditz's downed brother. Raditz now had a good look at the sheer amount of damage. There was no living through that. A gasp escaped him as he just stared. Such a shame. Vegeta's voice pierced the silence. Well Raditz, seems you failed. No. Kakarot, stand up. Raditz's voice was nearly shot now. Get up. Oh please, it's not that big a deal, Piccolo stated as he walked towards the weakened Saiyan. They'll gather the Dragon Balls and revive Goku. You, meanwhile, will become a forgotten memory. What? Raditz questioned as he looked right at Piccolo. They can just do that. Keep him talking, Raditz, Vegeta commands. As Raditz falls down, he takes a few deep breaths. How? There's no way that can be real. Oh, they're very real. Anything one's heart could desire is at the disposal of whoever finds the Dragon Balls. Piccolo gloats, before glaring down and realizing the device on Raditz's ear was making noise. What are you doing? TCH, as we speak, 2 other Saiyans are going to be making their way here. I'd estimate you have a year. Raditz explains away, looking down at the ground and thinking about the failed mission. May as well say it, doesn't matter what happens here, I'm a dead man. Because both of them are stronger than me. Krillin, Bulma, and Roshi all stand in shock at that. Stronger? It took Goku dying and there were 2 people stronger than the guy who caused that. They sounded pretty much doomed. You're damn right you're a dead man, Piccolo says as he quickly grows a new arm, roaring out in pain. And I'll use this new hand to do the job. Piccolo, wait. Goku's voice weakly calls out, he's not a threat now, right? Not a threat? I'm sorry, did the hole that got made in your chest not teach you anything? I should kill him before we have 3 of them to deal with at once? Piccolo growls out loudly. There are more showing up, and by the sounds of it, they're going to kill him. Goku begins to reason. So I want you guys to get any information out of him. Anything to help give an edge in this fight. I think you'll do it. And hey, could you keep an eye on Gohan, for me? You're asking 2 things. Goku, don't think I owe you anything, Piccolo shouts, frustrated at this. Just train him. Please, Goku mutters out. I'm trusting my family in your hands, while I'm gone. The wind howls as Raditz silently watches as Kakarot coughs out blood. His hand trembling as he reaches out, before he passes out from sheer pain and exhaustion. But as Kakarot's soul leaves its body, Raditz's would be left bound to the earth. Any wish you could imagine. Vegeta quietly ponders to himself before grinning. Well, Nappa, seems we're heading to that dust ball after all. Yeah. We could use it to fix up Raditz, or even save the Saiyan race. Nappa confidently says as he tightens his hand in a fist. Vegeta, however, burst into a cold, mocking laugh. Nappa felt himself deflate somewhat from this reaction. Getting a cold sweat at Vegeta's reaction. Raditz. Save the Saiyan race. His tone dripped with disdain, turning to look at Nappa with a cruel smirk. Peeved. No, Raditz was weak, barely a Saiyan in the first place. And as for the Saiyan race, it's already dead, no way to bring it back at this point. Nappa's grin faltered, confused by Vegeta's sharp words. It was beginning to sound like something horrible was brewing in this short prince. We're not wasting something as powerful as a wish on trash like Raditz, Vegeta continued, eyes narrowing as his grin turned more sinister. No, Nappa. We're going to use that wish for something far greater. We'll use it to deal with Frieza. Frieza? Nappa asked, his confusion deepening. We could wish to be stronger, but there's still the whole Frieza force. Stronger? No, I'll wish for immortality. His voice was calm, but there was an underlying madness to it. Once I'm immortal, not even Frieza will be able to touch me. I'll take his empire, kill him, and rule everything. Nappa blinked, the weight of Vegeta's plan slowly dawning on him. A revelation that was becoming more unnerving at the thought of it. Eternity being a minion. Yeah, he'd fight, but that's an eternity under the thumb of him. Immortality, huh? Then there wouldn't be a need for the rest of the Saiyans. Nappa felt something creeping up his spine. Exactly, Vegeta confirmed, his voice dripping with satisfaction. We won't need them or anyone. The Saiyan race doesn't need to be reborn. The only ones who matter are us. I will become the ruler of the universe, and you, Nappa, you can fight at my side, forever. Haha, yeah. Forever. Nappa tried to fake being enthusiastic about it. This whole thing sounds like a series of bad ideas. Vegeta, on the other hand, was already lost in his own ambition, staring ahead into the endless void of space as if he could already see Frieza's downfall. His smirk had become a full grin now, a dark, gleeful expression that reflected his twisted desire for power. He wasn't just thinking about immortality. He was savoring the thought of it. He was already imagining himself ruling the universe with an iron fist, crushing any opposition, including Frieza. We'll get moving right away, Vegeta states. Saiyan domination is waiting. Right. Got it. I'll just start setting the course, Nappa says as he enters his pod to look at the length of the journey. Nappa settled into his pod, the controls lighting up as he set the course for Earth. But his mind wasn't focused on the destination anymore, it was racing. He knew Vegeta was dead serious about immortality, and once they got to Earth and found those Dragon Balls, everything would change. The thought of spending eternity as Vegeta's right-hand man didn't sit well with Hai. He was already well past when he was supposed to be relieved of this job. Nappa needed a way to either stop this plan or, at least slow it down. He can't believe he's doing this, it's like an insurrection, against Vegeta, and against the king that assigned him this job. Damn it, he muttered under his breath. How'd I stop something like that? I can't fight him, not Vegeta. He tapped on the navigation panel, charting a path with multiple detours, stopping at untamed planets with barely any intelligent life. The idea was simple. Slow down the journey, give himself more time to think, and maybe even find a way to steer Vegeta's focus elsewhere. Let's take a few pit stops, Nappa mumbled quickly to himself, punching in coordinates to remote, hostile worlds. Vegeta likes a good fight. Maybe that'll distract him enough. The pod confirmed the route, and Nappa leaned back, releasing a groan of annoyance and pure stress. A few extra days on these wild planets wouldn't change the inevitable, but it would buy him some time to come up with something. Anything. Back in his own pod, Vegeta was too caught up in his vision of universal domination to notice. He'd already mentally prepared for the showdown with Frieza, his mind calculating every step to achieving his ultimate goal. The pit stops? They were nothing more than minor detours in his mind, a chance to stretch his muscles before the real mission on Earth began. A place to get a bite before he slaughters that planet and becomes akin to a god. The pods would fly into the sky, beginning the voyage. As Vegeta looks forward to what he believes will be his destiny manifested, Nappa was instead hoping to get Vegeta to reconsider. One of these two plans seems far more likely than the other, but neither were aware that the Earthlings were aware they were on the way. The human fighters all stood silently. Krillin was sweating up a storm, Yamcha seeming ready to throw up, but Tien was just silently staring down at Raditz. With that, Tien begins to stand up, turning and moving away towards the door. Well, I guess that means we're off to Kami's lookout, Tien says to the others. You heard the spaceman, we don't put everything into it, we're all dead. Wait, before you go. If there's any kind of opportunity, at all, that may give an edge, take it. Raditz began to sweat a bit. Whatever you can use it. Saiyans get stronger after surviving a brutal encounter, so Kakarot will no doubt come back stronger, and once I healed up, I'll be stronger as well, probably not equal to Nappa, but strong enough to help you. Bulma quietly cracked a smirk as she returned to work, getting a few ideas in her head. Finally, just as the men were at the door, it would open revealing a woman with curly dark blue hair. Launch. What are you doing here? Tien questions, somewhat apprehensive of her being near this man. I called her. Bulma explained quickly. I figured she'd be helpful for keeping an eye on Raditz's healing, and, well, be ready to put him down a peg if he tries anything. Launch had a rather spacey expression before she comes quietly over, smiling down at Raditz before nodding to Tien, as if to signify she'll be okay. He begrudgingly had to leave her here in charge of watching this threat. Raditz would just lean his head back for now. He'll play this game. But once he's healed up, his first order of business will be to find his pod. If it comes down to it, he'll need to be ready to make an escape. As the Z fighters touched down on the lookout, they would look all around to see if they could see or sense anyone. Tien was first to land, followed by Yamcha, then Chaozu, and after a bit of looking, Krillin. There was nothing around them. Seems Kami's still gone, probably with Goku's body. The Guardian of Earth disappeared shortly after the battle with Raditz, presumably to find a way to give Goku a fighting chance. Empty. Tien mutters out as he walks further in. Where is he? Probably with Goku. Krillin was first to speak at Kami's defense. Or maybe he's talking to Piccolo? That's great and all, but we need him here for our training, Tien reminded, turning to the others. Unless you three want to spar here. I'd recommend against sparring here. A voice calls from directly behind Tien. Tien would snap at attention and see Mr. Popo smiling up at him. A serene aura was around the friendly guardian's aid. The Triclopean fighter lowered his hands and took a deep breath, feeling a strange wave of calm around him. "Hello. Are you Cammy?" Tien questions. "I am Mr. Popo. I am the man who keeps the lookout. If you'll come with me, I'll take you to your first bit of training." The man speaks in a strangely sweet voice as he beckons them to follow his lead. As the four follow behind Mr. Popo, they would be led through the inside of the lookout, to a large grand door that opens up. The dark room was filled with the rhythmic ticking of a clock. He motions for them to enter. "Hey what's in there?" Krillin questions, remaining apprehensive. "Only what you need to see," Mr. Popo assures with a smile. "The pendulum room will allow you to spar, but not against each other. It will take your mind and soul to a place where you can fight against Saiyans, each equal to the one that fought Goku." The four immediately began to feel nervous at the sheer thought of it. The thought of fighting Raditz at what he was at when he destroyed Goku and Piccolo feels like a harsh first day of training. Clearly there's a reason for it though. While Mr. Popo feels it's too early for this, Cammy wanted to do it for a specific reason. To get them ready for the ruthlessness that awaits them in a year. "Once you are ready, please step into the circle in the center." Mr. Popo speaks in a friendly voice. "Do so with your eyes closed, and your minds opened." The four quietly walked forward, their eyes closed, letting the rhythmic ticking of the pendulum room guide them. As they stepped unknowingly into the center, a strange energy enveloped them, the air around them tinged with a vibrant purple glow. The familiar scent of flowers that had filled the room began to fade, replaced by the unmistakable smell of blood and the foul stench of smoke and ash. With a sudden shift, the Z-fighters felt the ground beneath their feet give way to something solid yet foreign. Their eyes flew open, revealing a desolate landscape before them. They stood on an alien planet, its entire surface marred by deep craters and scattered debris. The sky was a harsh, bruised color, swirling with dark clouds that mirrored the devastation below. Skeletons laid all around the area, wearing armor exactly like Raditz's. "Where are we?" Yamcha questions as he looks down at one of the bodies on the ground. "Are these Saiyans?" "If they are, seems like the battle ended in a draw, or maybe a victory for whoever attacked. This planet's completely torn to shreds." Tien spoke in a voice filled with disdain. "This is what awaits the Earth if we fail." The four remained sweating bullets as they moved along the destroyed planet. The whole world feels heavier than the one they were used to, making it harder to move around in. Chances are flight isn't going to be an option here. As they moved along, Chaozu would look in a window and see a skeleton that was pinned into a wall. Unlike the others, this one was wearing a scouter still, somehow. The small pale boy felt sick to his stomach seeing this. "Chaozu. Come on," Tien shouts to get Chaozu's attention. "All right," Chaozu mutters, keeping his eye on the skeleton. Without warning, the skeleton jolted up, staggering forwards as the bones seemed to have the cracks mend. Muscles begin to sprout from around as eyes pop from the eye holes in the skull, the tongue being the first thing to come out in form and a gurgling to escape the horrid thing. Slowly skin begins to appear on the skin before the hair finally takes shape, falling down the back of its owner. This sight would cause Chaozu to scream. Before Chiaozu could even hurry to get to his friends, the building exploded. The tall Saiyan grabbed Chiaozu's head and dig his nails in slowly, the small and weak human screaming and struggling as the tightening continues, until Chiaozu goes completely limp. Laughter erupting from this wicked Saiyan. "Chaozu!" Tien shouted, holding his hands together to do a tri-beam, charging his energy before being pulled by Yamcha out of the way of another strange beam of energy. A second Saiyan was floating over the pile of bodies, seemingly balding with tufts of hair around the sides and back of his head, and a scar on his forehead. A low growling laugh escapes this second Saiyan as he floats to stand next to his partner. "What sad little things, Brocco?" The balding Saiyan chortles out. "Yes, sad indeed, Pump." The tall, mullet-wearing Saiyan responds as he throws Chaozu at the pair. "Let's make a game of this. The kid doesn't count. Betcha I'll kill more of them than you." Krillin tries to sidestep, charging energy into his hands for a Kamehameha. Pump smirks at this and holds up one finger, firing another strange beam of pink energy, all while Brocco clashes arms with Yamcha. Tien had caught Chaozu's body and felt a rising rage in the sorrow he was feeling. As far as he was aware, this one moment of training just lost them his best friend. He shouts out angrily as he turns his attention to Bracco, the one that had taken Chaozu. Take this. Multiform, Tien declares as he splits into 3 different versions of himself, each one holding their hands up to form tri-beams. Whoa. That looks weird. Not gonna let yo. Before Bracco could complete his sentence, he was struck out of nowhere by Yamcha into the direction of Pump. Hey. Watch it, Brock. Pump shouts out. Not my fault. The ant got a good shot in. You should stop underestimating your food. Pump's attention was taken off of Krillin, but his beam was still effortlessly clashing the Kamehameha. Don't underestimate Earthlings. Tien shouts out, charging energy into all 3 sets of hands. Tri-beam. The trio of blasts hit the 2 targets head-on. For a moment they actually thought that did something. That was until suddenly a hand grabbed Krillin from the smoke, and they sensed his energy cease to exist. And then the 2 remainders get blasted to bits with those pink energies. Their agonized cries fill the air before they were all back in the pendulum room. Ticking was the only sound that filled the air, until one finally broke. Krillin just let out a cry of terror as he collapses on the ground. They were both just equal to Raditz? Tien shudders out. We don't stand a chance, Yamcha says, before collapsing and vomiting on the ground. Now that's not necessary, there's another way around this. Mr. Popo speaks as he enters the room. But, I need you all to trust me. And trust what Cammy told me. The 4 of them stared at Mr. Popo, all confused, terrified, and Tien enraged. He quickly moved in to stare down Mr. Popo. How exactly are we going to have a fighting chance? Tien demanded to know an answer to that question. Well, you were on the Saiyan home planet. And, you can keep going there, until you collapse, or until you win. Throwing yourself at a wall until you win won't work. So, how about we give you tools to get you ready? With this, Mr. Popo would lead them back out to the front. Cammy was standing there, and in front of him was a series of clothing. Weighted clothing. Their training begins right here and now. They saw their first threshold, and now they're ready to prepare for it. This training will not stop until either the Saiyans arrive, or until they can beat the Phantom Fighters. Gohan was being given personal training by the Namekian to control his latent power. The Earthlings were up training with this planet's protector. And Kakarot was apparently in the otherworld preparing his soul for the battle against Vegeta and Nappa. And here Raditz was, bedridden. A grunt escapes him as he tries to force himself to stand. The injuries were almost entirely in his upper body. Why weren't his damned legs working right? After struggling, Raditz pulled himself to stand. The only clothing he's wearing being the bandaging, and some measly sheets that ditzy Earth Girl, what was her name, launch, wrapped around him in his sleep. This position would not stay for long, as his head goes light and he stumbles against a wall, knocking down a tray filled with medicines as he lets out a curse. Mr. Raditz. The soft voice of the Earthwoman called, before she ran over to catch him from falling. You really should be staying in bed. Silence. This ISSSS, nothing. Raditz slurred out, he was far worse than he thought, but that doesn't change the fact he needs to make sure they're pushing themselves to the absolute limit. Yo should be getting shelters ready for when they arrive. You shouldn't train like this. You're far too damaged, far too weak. Launch tried to convince Raditz as she tried to lead him back towards his bed. Weak. Raditz's voice for a moment snapped back, that word, that damnable word. I am not weak. I am no runt. I am a Saiyan. A proud warrior. I will not just lie here and wait for Vegeta to come murder me. I understand that, but in your condition you'll just reopen wounds that are just healing. Launch speaks quickly before her breath hitches a bit. Ah. Launch would suddenly sneeze from the air tickling her nostrils, particles from the medicine that had hit the ground. Raditz was preparing a retort, but before he could, he got slammed right in the bicep by a gun, right where Piccolo had shot him. How long did Launch have that? And did she just become blonde out of nowhere? What the hell is wrong with you? Raditz screamed out as he damn near fell over, only for Launch to catch him by his tail. Ow. 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 Stop. Exactly. Launch spoke in a far more gruff voice, before grabbing Raditz and placing him back on the bed. Now stay here, and heal up. You'll be dead weight if you just keep worsening your body. We don't need a corpse. This was another big shot to Raditz's ego. He would tighten his hands into fists, hard enough to begin bleeding from his palms as his nails dig too deep in. He was being manhandled by some earthling. Worse yet, this earthling probably wasn't even close to the Namekian in power. Vegeta and Nappa would taunt him for acting like this, if not for the fact they're going to try killing him. You dare manhandle the great Raditz like some kind of injured pet. If I gotta, then yeah. Launch speaks down to him. You ain't leaving this building without my say-so, and you ain't leaving this room without Bulma's okay. And what, exactly, is stopping me from leaving? Raditz questioned with a smirk. Aside from the fact you can barely carry yourself, this capsule building's a prototype for something else. Launch explains as she walks out of the room, hitting a few buttons of the panel. Let me show you. Without warning, the gravity in the room feels as though it has well over doubled, and heat fills the room, causing Raditz to strain to even sit up. He groans out and tries to grab onto anything. If he were more healthy, this wouldn't be a problem for one like him, but right now it's as though his ribs were ready to collapse right into his lungs. Another sneeze filled the air, and the machine was quickly turned off. Launch has returned to her more sweet and docile blue-haired self. Raditz was now sweating, one part because of the condition, the other part because apparently his warden and keeper is a maniac whose mood shifts whenever she sneezes. And he's going to need to act appropriately, or he'll die before the year ends. About 2 months after they had begun their flight, Nappa and Vegeta had been mostly communications off. Vegeta because he wants to practice and prepare for the speech about achieving a legendary status as he begins his conquest and his empire. Nappa because he's trying to think of arguments to get Vegeta to cast aside the idea of becoming immortal. That was almost until Nappa's pod detected a planet that was uncharted, thus, undetected by Frieza's force. A light bulb popped in his head before he pressed a button to contact his cohort. Vegeta. Uncharted planet. Nappa paused for a response but didn't get one for about 30 seconds. Vegeta. 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 What Nappa? Vegeta's voice finally barks back. I'm in the middle of something important. Detecting an uncharted planet, could stop there, do some practice conquest for when we're in charge. Nappa explains, waiting a moment before continuing. Also, I'm hungry. There was a tense silence, but Nappa knew his idea would appeal to Vegeta's ambition. The thought of unclaimed territory, ripe for conquest or at least practice, was enough to make Vegeta reconsider. A sigh would escape the prince, followed by a long loud growl of the stomach. Fine, Vegeta finally relented. I suppose a break is in order, and I'll admit it. These muffins are flavorless. Coordinates? A smirk crosses Nappa's face as he transmits over the coordinates. The pair of pods would change their direction slightly, making their way towards a dark red planet that seemed to be overall lacking in water. As they approached, there was a breathable atmosphere, thus meaning it may in fact be an inhabited planet. I'll bet you whatever this place has got will be better than the sludge on that last planet. Nappa affirms heartily as they enter the atmosphere. Thunderous eruptions filled the air as the pods would make contact, kicking up debris and knocking over a nearby pillar. Following the dust settling from the touchdown, the pods slowly open up, allowing Vegeta to slip out first, followed by Nappa. They would turn on their scouters to see that the average power level here is roughly 200. The structures all appear to be suffering from a lack of care. Nappa even walks up to a standing pillar and pats it to feel the integrity. It falls apart. Great, a crumbling rock filled with weaklings. Vegeta mused lightly before kicking a rock. This planet's not worth the energy. Now Vegeta. What was rule number 316 on the rules of conquest? Nappa questioned as he kept a smirk. Do I look like I'd read 316 rules in a feel-good corporation book? Vegeta asks before his scouter beeps. 2 power levels begin to approach the pair, clocking in at about 2/2 of a Raditz, so 500 each. The pair would turn to see gray bug-like men riding atop horrible armored caterpillar things. Outsiders. You now reside within King Moai's land, Arlia. A vibrating voice invades their minds. You now have 2 options before you. Surrender here, or we'll be forced to destroy you. Nappa and Vegeta glance at each other, then grin. This is about to be so unbelievably funny. They lift their hands up, thinking of just blowing these guards up now, but it'd be funnier to do the blow up everything while surrendering. Bit later, they would be forced to put on handcuffs that appeared to be made of a strange chitinous material. From there, they'd be put inside of a strange pillbug-like cage that moved along with the guards that were herding the duo to a grand-looking castle, the only building that seems to have not been falling apart. This is what passes as advanced here. Primitive auto-servants, telekinetic speech, and Vegeta looks down at the strange cuffs, trying so hard to not laugh. Whatever these are, it feels like Frieza Planet 706, but with way more bugs. Eventually the pair would be brought to the prison, wherein they'd be pushed into a cell with a few Arlians, while the guards all seem to be uniform blacks, grays, and reds. These other ones seem to be far more varied in their colors. It was a guess as to why that would be. Vegeta imagined bug racism, which was honestly pushing him closer to busting a gut laughing. Nappa would sit down next to an Arlian prisoner with a blue shell and greenish eyes. While the rest of the prisoners shook like leaves, this one seemed far more forlorn. Vegeta remained making jokes to himself about the situation they're in, ready to just destroy the entire building when he thought it was no longer funny. "Hey man, what are you in for?" Nappa questions the blue Arlian. "Treachery," said Arlian explains. "I am Atla, one of the heirs to the throne. Currently in charge is my brother, Moai. You must have landed recently. The war ended a few days ago. We're being processed for slaughter." Vegeta laughed even harder at that. Not just bug racism, but a sibling situation. This is just too good. Nappa glanced up for a moment before he relaxes a bit again. "Well, it ain't all bad, is it?" Nappa questions. "Oh no, it's quite bad. He took everything," Atla admitted. "My place on the throne, my wife, multiple people's lives." "Shut up, you Reklaan," the guard at the gate declares angrily. "Our Lord Moai will now take some entertainment. You, Atla, and your little General Gregor. And we'll also take the aliens along." "Yay!" Nappa declares excitedly. "Come on Vegeta, let's show him what we're made of." "Finally, I was getting bored," Vegeta states with his grin going to a wide smile as he points 2 fingers forward at the gate, blowing the entire hall wide open and destroying the prison cells. "Any bug that wants a taste of payback, now's your chance." "Holy Shamli!" Atla shouted as he stood there. "Wait, you're breaking us out? Oh. Oh my lord. Everyone? These violent saviors have come to give us another chance. This will be our rebellion. This will be our freedom." Cries of war filled the room as Vegeta and Nappa just walk out, but not before busting open a few doors. For Vegeta this could be fun chaos to watch, but for Nappa there was something else here. He supposes he could relate to a desire to break out against tyranny. Within the arena, throne room, King Moai was enjoying a meal of fruits while surrounded by his elite guards. That was until he heard one explosion. Then another. He then glanced at his bride, who was wearing a white cloak to cover her far more dainty body entirely. "Do you hear that, my darling Lemlia? Sounds like they've decided to just put an end to those wretched renegades." King Moai spoke in a deep, self-assured voice that trilled at the end of each word. "My control remains, undaunted." "My lord." The aliens broke OU. Before the guard that arrived could finish speaking, he suddenly bursts into flames. "This is the place, little buddy." Nappa questions behind himself as he and Vegeta walk into the room. "This is the place," Atla assured as he holds onto a pair of hook swords, "and that's the man." "So that's your wife?" Vegeta questions, pausing for a moment to look Lemlia over. "I've seen better, also seen worse though so." Lemlia gasped at seeing Atla still alive. But she held the cloak tighter over her body at the sight of the strange, hideous heroes that have come to her aid. It appears Atla had managed to see past their appearances and befriend these men. "How dare you? How did you even get through all the guards? There'd be an army between the prison and here," Moai shouted angrily. "Oh, I think you'll find they're quite preoccupied right now." Vegeta jokes as his scouter detects 8 power levels around them, coming to a total of 3,140. The Saiyan duo would begin to walk forward, only for 8 red beams to all strike them at once. Atla screaming out in horror and holding out his hand for the men he'd call friends. All while King Moai laughs, and the 8 elite guards stand around, nearing the center to continue firing. "You see, Atla? Not even aliens will question my rule. I am above all. All hail Moai, all high." An explosion fills the room. What's left of the 8 elite guards end up everywhere. Nappa was holding up 2 fingers, as Vegeta chuckles lowly, beginning to walk towards Moai. Act. No. No. Yeti. Yeti, get in here. Moai declares as he presses buttons on the throne, causing a hole to open up and a large bronze R&N to begin scuttling out, breathing strangely as it does so. Destroy them, Yeti. They're bad. Vegeta. Nappa turns his head a bit. Yeah? Vegeta asks as his eyes remain firmly planted on the monster rising up. Are we bad? Nappa questioned again. Kinda. Vegeta affirms before turning on the scouter to see this thing on its own clocks out to a whopping 3,000. Yeti was far above the size of all the people currently in the room, put together. It let out a trilling roar as red beams fire from its eyes directly at Nappa and Vegeta, only for Vegeta to knock the blast into the air, causing the roof to blow open, and the full moon to glow down on the pair. Shall we, Vegeta? Nappa questions, referencing Uzaru. No, Vegeta affirms as he stares forward. I want to have fun here. The pair would seemingly disappear as Yeti stomps where they were at. As the creature's eyes scan around, Vegeta blasted at it from behind. Over here, Vegeta declares before flying off. The creature swings where Vegeta was at, slamming a pillar that causes more of the building to become open, only for Nappa to suddenly shoulder tackle the creature in the back. Another low growl escapes it as it slams its hand against Nappa. Nappa would begin to roar out as he holds onto one of the claws of the creature. Fool! Nobody has ever beaten the mighty Yeti. Cower in fear and maybe he'll eat you quickly. Moai shouts out excitedly as he tightens his hand into a fist. A loud squelch fills the air as Yeti's finger suddenly gets ripped off. This would cause a squeak of terror to escape Moai. What would cause it to worsen is when Nappa suddenly pierces Yeti's eye with the torn-off finger claw. Wheelp time to hit the old dusty trail. Come on, darling. Moai says to Lemlia, only for Vegeta to drop down in front of him. I'm bored. Vegeta says as before suddenly punching the R&N King into the air, holding up his hand from there and pointing at the flying body. Here's a fireworks show for you, Arlia. An explosion fills the air, and what's left of Moai rains down. Yeti had fallen silent following his head being blown from Nappa using a higher power blast. Ah, a bit of pest control's always good, Vegeta mutters before pressing a button on his scouter to call the pods to their location. Still, I had fun, Nappa states, also, still hungry. Just grab a few corpses. We'll have grilled bug, Vegeta commands Nappa. Wait. Atla's voice calls from behind the two. They turn to see that somehow he didn't get exploded in all that. My friends, I must know your names. I'm Nappa, this is Vegeta. We're Saiyans. Nappa explained away. Hey, Atla. Since we're doing you a favor, could we get some food? Nappa. Do not accept handouts from the bugs. Vegeta angrily commands as he floats up, positioning to sit back as his pod comes in right behind him. Aw, come on, Vegeta. I kinda want to see what food is like for them. Nappa declares up to his prince. I know you're curious, too. It's not a handout if they feel they owe us. Vegeta growled angrily, standing up and pointing his fingers down, preparing energy in the 2 fingers pointed right at the planet. He felt the energy beginning to form up until the rumbling was instead his stomach. He sighed in annoyance and pressed a button. The 2 pods would land. Fine. Let's see what R&N cuisine looks like, Vegeta mutters out. Oh, thank you for choosing to stay, friend Vegeta. Atla declares happily as Lemlia rushes over to hold onto her husband. In honor of you, we shall name our prince after you. Don't. Vegeta states angrily. Roughly 4 months into the training regiment, and the Earthlings have been undergoing rather intensive, near-constant training. At the end of each month they'd have been given another opportunity to fight Brocco and Pump on the phantom remains of the Saiyan homeworld. It had itself become a sort of endurance training for the 4 of them. The weighted clothing allowed them to push themselves further in each bit of training, but today they'd have one plan in mind. They're going to take out those bastards. The quartet were waiting for Mr. Popo to be ready to take them into the pendulum room. They've been pushing themselves to the limit, especially with how heavily Raditz insisted they take any opportunity they can to hasten training. Luckily the last time they all touched base, Goku confirmed from the other world that he's working on something of great value, and Piccolo ended up being given help training Gohan with fortune teller Baba. Alright, everyone. The Earthlings heard Popo's voice call out to direct them to follow him. It is time to make our way once more, to the pendulum room. Finally, Tien spoke up first of the group. With the order to follow, they all would follow and once more walk through the doorway, listening to the ticking until it would stop and they were once more on the desolate remains of the Saiyan homeworld. This time around, the Saiyans were floating in the air waiting in hopes to fire right down on the four. The very seconds the Earthlings arrived, however, things were different. Tien managed to detect their location instantly, allowing Krillin and Chaozu to immediately fire up directly at the pair. A Kamehameha and a Dadan Ray. As Pump and Brocco dodged the blasts, they would be caught suddenly by Tien and Yamcha, being juggled by the duo in a mixture of Tien's volleyball fist and Yamcha's wolf fang fist. Grunts of pain would escape the duo before they managed to drop away from the pair. This, however, would cause them to get shot at by Chaozu's Dadan Ray, hitting Pump's shoulder as Brocco decides to meteor downward at the smaller Earthlings. Before Brocco can crash down, Tien and Krillin both line up and hold their heads up. First, Tien does his solar flare, allowing Krillin to follow up with an amplified solar flare. Thanks to Tien's flare, this would nearly burn Brocco's retinas, and when his knees hit the ground he got nothing but rock. "Ah! Dix! Dix!" Brocco screamed out, not sure whether to hold his face because of his blinded eyes, or to hold his knees that got absolutely demolished. "Don't worry, Brocco. They may be stronger, but there's no way they'll survive this," Pump declares as he charges purple energy into each of his individual fingers. Mass. Kankusen. The web of strange angular purple energy flies everywhere, attempting to pierce the Earthlings. As Krillin and Chaozu dodge, Tien decides to use multiform technique and dodge, getting closer to the epicenter as his four selves begin to charge up energy in their hands. Yamcha meanwhile lets go of his focus and allows himself to enter a free fall. Pump's blasting had eventually let up, and he pants, the dust clouding his vision, until his scouter detects 4 power levels all around him at once. "Ya want strong?" The many bodies of Tien questions. "Try this, try beam." With 4 golden flashes all meeting in the center where Pump is, Brocco's scouter would pick up 5 power levels up there, then 4. And he heard a body hit the ground. What's happening? Last we fought we absolutely slaughtered you. This can't. No. Brocco's face was directed up at the sky as the blindness wore off. The 4 stand around him, all ready to do their techniques. Tien preparing another tri-beam, Yamcha setting up for Spirit Ball, Chaozu pointing a Dadan Ray right at his back, and Krillin just standing to the left, not even preparing anything. The Saiyan clenched his fist. This isn't supposed to be how this goes. "It's over. Go silently into slumber." Tien speaks quietly. "You fought hard, but that's it." "No, it is not over. You made one mistake. Today is the day of planet Vegeta's full moon." As the Saiyan shouts, his tail suddenly unwraps from around his waist and points directly outward. Behold, the true terror of the Saiyan people. Oozaruu. As the shout of the defiant Saiyan fills the air, the Earthlings would have to stumble backwards. The already unnaturally tall Saiyan begins to grow larger, fur beginning to rise from all over his body. He grows up to become a gigantic, great ape. Whopping laughter fills the air. "What?" Tien shouts out in utter shock. "This is just like at Pilaf's castle," Yamcha shouted, immediately getting a thought. "Wait. Krillin. That thing you're working on, think it could cut his tail off? Can you keep him distracted?" Krillin asks. "We'll have to." Yamcha mutters out, then looking back up. "All right everyone. Break." Everyone immediately darted away from each other and the large monster that was swatting the air at them. Krillin decides to pull further back while Yamcha and Chaozu throw small volleys of energy at the great ape. Tien positioning himself below the beast and preparing the multiform technique. The beast slams down, just as Tien had split into 3 different Tiens that were all rushing around, one running up the legs of the beast while prepping a tri-beam in his hands. The beast blasts a purple blast of energy from his mouth at the Tien duplicate, that seemed to disappear as quickly as he appeared. The other 2 Tiens now getting the charge of the 3rd duplicate's tri-beam. The beast continues to blaze its purple energy, trying to sweep to get the other Tiens when he felt his entire tail get squeezed. "Hold it!" Chaozu screams out, psychically tightening down on the tail. Oh God. Oh God, oh no, oh this is agony. Brocco shouts out as he tries to whip his tail out of the hold. This is impossible. You could barely focus before. Tri-beam. The two TNs shout as they fire directly at the great ape's back, the combined pain from these strikes and the psychic control forcing the creature to fall forward. Brocco luckily caught himself with his hands, and was in a position to absolutely blast Krillin, a blast he would let loose. The certain shot, however, was suddenly intercepted by a glowing ball of golden energy that seemed to have swerved right into position. A scream of defiance once again escapes the Saiyan as he continues to try pushing past this blast. He was indeed starting to get ahead. Ultimately, his might was still far greater than all of these ants flailing at him. Destructo Disc. Krillin shouts out as he throws the circular blade of ki right at Brocco. Contact would be made, and Brocco felt an agony far greater than his tail being grabbed. A loud thud would quake the ground, and the Saiyan's tail was now no longer attached. Brocco began to shrink down as his energy was lessening. No. No. Brocco screamed out in horror as his concentration broke. His body continues shrinking and the great ape's hair receding back into his body. A loud crack filled the air as the spirit ball made contact, and blew Brocco back into the wall. Blood poured from his mouth, that was searing from the mouth full of energy that hit him. He was groaning, and trying to wrench himself to sit up. The Saiyan, however, could only cough up teeth as the four Earthlings surrounded him. It's over, Brocco. Tien speaks up as he stares down. It was a battle hard fought, and you've been enlightening. But in the end, we have won. The coughs and grunts of pain escaping Brocco would slowly shift, changing into a taunting laughter as he glares up at the victors of this encounter. He would cling harshly to the wounds his body had sustained from the fight. You've certainly got spirit, and you've certainly got tricks up your sleeve, but do you really think, if someone who is the equivalent of 15 of me is coming by, you're going to stand a ghost's chance in hell? No, you'll all die. And I'll bet it'll be the pretty one first. MHMHMHMHMHM. Ahahahaha. And when you all come barreling into hell, we'll have a proper rematch. As Brocco's laughter echoes, his body seems to melt away into a skeleton, then the area around them melts away into the pendulum room. The Earthlings have successfully completed training to defeat a Saiyan. This has granted them knowledge on weaknesses, and how best to prioritize each other's techniques. As the four take a breath of air, they would begin to walk back towards the door, except, there is one outlier amongst them. Yamcha's vision momentarily gets taken by a strange-looking jar. It appears to be endlessly feeding a strange cyan sand from the bottom, somehow, back into the top. The curiosity of the Earthling gets the better of him and he lags behind for just a moment, wanting to examine the hourglass and see how something like it functions. Reaching out, Yamcha would attempt to touch the glass, but the sand inside seemed to jump and move faster at his touch. His eyes remained so fixed, almost hypnotized on the strange phenomena. Then he heard a voice calling. Yamcha. Come out here. Popo spoke up, not leaving his normal inflection, but raising the voice just to get his attention. Oh. Yamcha quickly stood, bumping the table and causing the hourglass to break. Shit coming. Yamcha would try to sweep it up as best as he could, before shamefully just sweeping it underneath the table he found it on top of. Better he just do that. After a bit of time he steps outside to stand with the other Earthlings. Cammy and Mr. Popo stand and look over the Earthlings. As it stands, I've done all I can do for you. You may keep the weighted armor, but for the remainder of this time, you must return to the Earth, get your training as you can find it down there. Cammy spoke quietly and sternly to the four. As we speak, Goku shall be finishing his training with the King Kai. I can sense Piccolo and Gohan are making great strides. But, you four, you are the symbol of the Earth. I pray you not die needlessly. The four stand proudly, deciding it may be time to split up to continue their training. As the Earthlings make their way out, the cyan sand reaches outward, growing what appears to be a well-manicured hand that slams against the ground. A body slowly taking shape as a gasp escapes the creature within. Yamcha has unknowingly unleashed the next step of their training. A demon has been released from its sentence for defiance against Cammy, and now, it will gather the troops and release its master from a prison of endless darkness. The howl of a wicked wind always filled the Crimson Sea. Gashu always liked the sounds naturally carried by this wind. So did Lord Garlic. The demon feels his mind still spinning from 300 years of that agonizing hourglass. He was the lucky one of Lord Garlic's 4 monarchs. Kami will pay for imprisoning the great demon who served so ruthlessly under his hand. Anger began to fill the mind of Gashu, enough to cause energy to bubble to his surface, and his own howl to fill the air, harmonizing with the sound of the Crimson Sea. At the call of one of the great pariahs, a castle would slowly rise from the clouded Crimson Sea. Plumes of dark red clouds rising with the intricate palace. Kami's failure was not doing what was necessary 300 years ago. Now, Gashu can tear open the rift in space-time and pull his lord out. Soon, my lord. You'll experience the great taste of this world's air once more. Gashu spoke in a voice that was filled with nothing but admiration, before lifting a hand and pointing it at the head of a serpent statue that is coiled all around the palace. By blood of fallen angel. By darkest will and greatest of hate. I call upon thee. I break the seal of the dead zone and call forth, my lord. The statue's head seems to move now, opening and unhinging its jaw as a black hole forms around the creature. The eyes remain piercing white dots as the teeth of the statue become metallic in appearance. A creature is slowly expelled, wearing a cloak over its tiny body. Tremors began to run through the earth, sending waves of dread to all those capable of feeling it. Free, at last. The voice of the demon echoed unnaturally. Now, where's my army? Across the Crimson Sea, Roshi would be the first one to catch onto the strange sensation and do an intense spit take, absolutely coating Krillin and Turtle in beer. This also ruined the meal the trio were having by getting Roshi's old man's spit and beer particles all over their meals. Damn it, Roshi. What's wrong with you? Krillin shouted angrily. Quiet boy. And feel it. Roshi commanded, quietly staring forward as he could sense the rising energy signature. It's like King Piccolo, but somehow more brutal, more self-absorbed. Tien and Chaozu had been meditating to gather their ki and mystic energies more properly when they sensed the horrifying aura coming from the Crimson Sea. Chaozu ended up collapsing from how violent it felt. Yamcha, in the Diablo Desert, felt a pit in his stomach as though this was somehow his fault. In West City, Raditz's tail twitched, as though in his sleep he was able to feel the evil, the power. In his sleep he thought maybe Nappa arrived earlier than Vegeta. Launch was still taking care of him in his state, but she immediately took note of his vitals and thought it best to try shaking him awake. It was going to take a lot more than blue-haired Launch has in her, however. Piccolo had been pushing Gohan to the peak with their survival training, but as he was teaching Gohan the importance of dodging, mostly by screaming before throwing things at him, Piccolo felt vibrations of something familiar hit him. He dropped the boulder he was about to make Gohan dodge just to look in its direction. Mr. Piccolo. Gohan looked confusedly to the large green man, before himself catching onto that. Are those the Saiyans? No, Gohan. But depending on what I'm imagining, it might be worse than Saiyans. Piccolo warned, before getting an idea. This, however, could be useful. Back at Garlic Palace, the new lord was casually strolling towards his throne room, being followed sycophantically by the remaining monarch. Gashu kept his head bowed with each movement, hands holding slightly onto the salmon and yellow robins adorning his white and primarily pink armor. He then took a knee once the lord took a spot on his throne. Lord Garlic. I have waited so long to be able to return you. Gashu spoke with such reverence in his voice, and a tremble in his very being. Now that you have returned, my lord, I am ready. Ready to become exactly what you saw in me. Ready to do exactly as you had desired 300 years ago. That's very fascinating, Gashu. The small gremlin of a man speaks down to the tall Cyan demon, only to reveal his own sickly greenish-blue skin with yellowish dots along the sides of his head. But I'm Garlic Jr. The old man suffered something intense, and had to give himself up into me. New Lord, and I intend to spread about true chaos upon this ungrateful land. Now, where are the monarchs? Well, my lord, if memory recalls, Musta, Vanika, and Sancho are all underneath the palace, awaiting to be revived. Gashu speaks as he keeps his head down. All right. What exactly needs to be done? Garlic Jr. questioned further, head resting on one hand. Allow me, my lord, Gashu offered before standing and raising his hands into the air and then clapping them. All right, you bitches, time to add some spice to this courtroom. Slowly 3 caskets rise from the ground, melting into existence before slowly opening as smoke fills the air, causing Garlic Jr. to cough as some kind of trumpets begin to play. The figures of the formerly inactive demons rise and slowly become filled with energy. The four monarchs, the Spice Boys, have returned. Oh Lord, you aren't going to dance or why? Bringing in the spice and sass to the Spice Boys, it's Sancho. The first of the three declares in a scratchy voice. Sancho was a large bald green man with veins all over his longer than average forehead. His body seemed to be entirely covered in these veins, as though his blood pressure was at the max and ready to pop. Green spikes poking from all over his body, including his navy blue armor, given pink accents near the end and on the digits of his black gloves. Let's leave this flavor on the world for millennia to come. It's Musta. The second's voice was far deeper and bassier than anyone else in the room. Musta seemed to be 3 feet taller than the short but wide Sancho. He had a rather floppy and wrinkly grayish-brown face akin to a frog's. He also had orange hair that was braided and let flop any which way, with a pair of yellow bull-like horns that appeared to be sharpened enough to pierce one's body. He wore deep blue armor similar to Sancho, with pink bracelets and shoulder pads. Let's just do this, Vanika. Vanika at the very least shares Garlic Jr.'s enthusiasm for this roll call stuff. Vanika is an incredibly tall one, nowhere near as muscular as Sancho, or the more reasonably sized Gashu. He however was the tallest of everyone in the room. His strange light pinkish-purple skin would look just barely wrong. His long black hair stops just below his thighs. He lacks pink on his armor, instead wearing teal and black armor with pure white piping. And with me in the center, giving the sweetheart to the monarchs, Gashu declares loudly with a finger in the air, "We are the Spice Boys." The 4 demons stood tall in the throne room, their presence now fully restored, crackling with dark energy that reverberated through the palace. Garlic Jr. watched them with a mixture of disdain and pride, clearly pleased with their revival, but annoyed by the spectacle. "Well, good to meet you lot." Garlic Jr. groans before sensing to see if anyone's coming. "All right. First order of business, tall one. Get me a drink. Tweedledee and Tweedledum. You two, go test your mettle against King Piccolo, and make sure to bring me the body." Vanika gives a thumbs up before just wandering off towards a doorway that leads to the sublevels of the palace. Musta and Sancho gave each other wide smiles at the fact Garlic Jr. believes them both worthy of battling against King Piccolo. They then both clear their voices, wanting to give a good impression to their new lord. "Oh, we will bring the remnants of King Piccolo for you, my lord, then the staff of Kami." And then, Sancho was going to keep going, but he was cut off by Musta. "Any and all who stand in our way will be destroyed. We shall clear out a trail of bodies in your name." Musta spoke with a powerful growl of a voice. Why are you still here?" Garlic Jr. questions, shooing away the pair as they finally fly off. "And you, Gashu. I want you to grab the strongest in the world. Gather 'em up. And bring them to me. We need a court of the mighty if we're to make the earth a kingdom of power." "As you command, my lord. The earth's mighty will be yours." Gashu speaks quickly as he bows, before turning and running towards the exit, disappearing like a bullet into the sky. A satisfied grin would crack along Garlic Jr.'s cheeks. He's only just arrived on Earth and suddenly he's got 4 mighty warriors, and a chance at control. Nobody could get between him and total domination, total control over these pathetic, weak mortals. Back at West City, Launch was still trying to shake Raditz awake, before sneezing loudly and changing to her blonde self. The blonde was very irritated with all this waiting around as the sky blackened. She loaded her gun before deciding to grab Raditz by his neck. "Hey! Get the hell up! We've got a big problem, you lazy louse!" Blonde Launch would bark right into Raditz's ear. And with that, his eyes would shoot open. Gohan sat down at the bottom of a cliff, staring up and shielding his eyes from the desert sun, all while trying to guess what was going on with his mentor. Piccolo seems to have entered a strange trance. The large green man remains firm in his position, arms crossed, cape flowing in the wind, turban covering his head and keeping his antennae firmly pressed down. "Mr. Piccolo?" Gohan called up. "Is something wr? Gohan, I will throw you at another wall." Piccolo snapped down to the small Saiyan, before returning his attention towards the Crimson Sea. "I've trained you in this, sense in that direction right now." Gohan silently puffed his cheeks in annoyance, before doing as he was instructed. Sensing in that direction he could detect Krillin and Master Roshi in Kame House. He could detect something under the waves of water sleeping. After a bit of time though, it felt as though he was hit in the face with the sheer dark energy coming from the sea. A sensation that must have been similar to what his dad felt when Raditz arrived. That's so scary. Gohan mutters out, shaking in his place as he stares in the direction. HMPH. Looks like you're getting use of your training ahead of time, Gohan. Piccolo smirked at the idea of it, before he senses two nearing forces. Huh? There's more than one? The pair were going for a pincer technique. Musta charging wild red electric energy in his left hand as Sancho fires a number of rapid-fire lime green shots in Piccolo's direction. Piccolo was able to dodge out of the direction the maddened rush of blasts effortlessly, that however left him unable to focus on the hefty punch hitting him from behind. Piccolo coughed out purple blood as he was knocked forward, before being grabbed and slammed into the ground by Musta. This is the mighty King Piccolo? Musta taunts as he continues smashing down on the Namekian. What a joke, Sancho. Gotcha. The wicked minion screams out before jumping up and firing more lime green shots downright on Piccolo, causing the whole mountain to give way and seemingly collapse on him. Mr. Piccolo. Gohan screamed out in bloody murder, before glaring angrily in the direction of the two, and growling as he felt his power rise. That was it? Sancho mused, sounding so utterly bored as he glances down the hole. Should we, dig him up? Do you want to go through all that hassle? Musta's question was followed by him glancing in the direction of a small angry boy. Ohu. Seems he had a little minion of his own. Look at him. Sancho and Musta both stared down the angered Gohan, who blitzed forward at the pair, bathed in pure white energy. Sancho would move out of the way as Musta crossed his arms, taking on the full brunt of the blast as Sancho would suddenly stomp down on Gohan's lower back, the boy coughing out painfully before hitting the ground, the force causing a reaction in his back to begin. The wicked small minion preparing to blast Gohan to smithereens before Musta smacked him upside the head. Oi! We were told to just kill King Piccolo. The kid though, we can take him. Maybe make him a new member of Lord Garlic Jr.'s court. Musta's voice was filled with glee at the idea of being rewarded from such a great idea. He's a kid, Musta. Chances are this story ends in him silently vowing revenge, and then killing you in your sleep. Sancho mutters before relenting and picking the kid up. Well, I sure hope Gashu is having as easy a time as we are. Meanwhile, the turtle hermit Roshi was trying to do anything to get into contact with any of the other fighters, trying to warn them of the arriving terror. All while Krillin stood ready at the front of Kame House, on the tiny island Roshi called home. Given the screams and expletives coming from Roshi, there's no luck getting in contact with anyone. Krillin however was focused on keeping his eyes on the presence in the newly formed palace that was down the way. Damn it! Roshi screamed out as he slammed his phone down. Tien, Yamcha, even launch ain't picking up. Then we shouldn't wait. Krillin affirms, mostly to psyche himself up. We need to get over there, before Piccolo does something insane. Are you absolutely insane, Krillin? Roshi shouted before grabbing his student from behind. We both died already. Dragon Balls ain't saving us if we get messed up. We need backup. Krillin's hands tightened into a fist at Roshi's warnings. The danger was very serious, and while he admits he wants backup, he couldn't just sit there. He would finally find himself snapping. We need backup, yeah, but if we don't do something he could really hurt. Excuse me? Is this Kame House? A voice called from above, causing the air to suddenly become ice cold. Home of the Turtle Hermit, winner of the 21st World Martial Arts Tournament? The pair of Earthlings would stare up to see the Cyan Man wearing such effeminate armor. Slowly he would lower to the ground, his boots touching the sand with a soft tap, before his very aura seemed to freeze away the plant life around him. A grin remains on the wicked man's face. And who wants to know? Roshi questions, realizing pretty quickly waiting for help is no longer an option. Now sir, I am just an emissary, an errand boy for the new king of this world, Garlic Jr. Gashu keeps a smirk as he bows his head lightly. And you, Jackie Chun, have been chosen to partake in his court. Please accept this honorable position with the grace I know you have. Gonna have to say no to that. Roshi mumbles out before tapping his staff on the ground, and by no, I mean hell no, I don't exactly work with demon overlords. Gasu's smirk didn't falter at that. In fact, it deepened. The demon already had an idea on how this was going to have to go, however he doesn't want to have to break anything. Though, he also recognized Krillin, who is going to be even harder to crack no doubt. Now please good sir. The world's changing. The strong will be running the world. And you've always been among the strongest in this world. Gashu offered, trying to figure out a means of getting Roshi to take the bait. Lord Garlic Jr. could offer a number of things you may desire. Money, power, fame, women. Silence filled the air, and Krillin already realized. He would try to grab onto Roshi, try to snap him out of it. But the thoughts were already filling the old weirdo's head, the very idea of it. A life where women are actively pursuing his attention was so hard to resist, but he was clearly resisting it. Blood was rushing to his head and gushed out of his nose as he let out a series of strange noises. Master Roshi. Stop. Krillin begged as he shook his master. This is a trick, he's just trying to pull you into a trap. A trap? No. You see young Master Krillin. I am not allowed to lie. I will tell nothing but the truth, the whole truth. And the truth is you both have a place in Garlic Jr.'s future. A harem of beautiful women? All by just joining up? Count me in, Roshi mumbled and muttered loudly, his hands twitching in front of him as he allowed his thoughts to run wild. That was until he got smacked by Krillin. Waha? Come on Master Roshi. He's a demon. Are you really going to listen to anything from him? Krillin shouted angrily. Roshi stared in the direction of Gashu, before glancing back at Krillin. He knows he shouldn't answer that truthfully. But he would then reach down and pick up his staff, clearing his throat as he does so. The turtle hermit managed to regain his composure. But he'd be lying if he said he wouldn't take the offer without Krillin here. Gasu's attention momentarily turns as he looks off to his right. Sorry, but gonna have to say no, Roshi grumbled, staring forward. Oh. Yes. I understand, but come to the Crimson Sea if you change your mind. Gashu offers as his body seems to fade into sand. We'll have plenty to offer when you arrive. With that, Gasu's form disappeared into the salty wind of the sea, heading back southward towards the palace. Leaving the pair of turtle-style baldies there to think on how to proceed. Krillin shoots an incredibly angry look at his master as Roshi averts his gaze a bit. And then, the phone would ring. The labyrinth begins to shift and groan. 3 images appear on the doorways above the pathways. Gasu's voice begins to boom. Each path before you is labeled with a special marking. Figure out which path to take, and you'll be home free. Pick wrong, and you'll be crushed in no time flat. Gashu sounded far too eager to mess with them. To hell with this. Dao raises his hand upwards, intending to blow his way out of the maze. Wait. Chi shouted, but too late. Dao fired into the ceiling, causing yet more sand to end up falling down. The group was split from there, each ending up in a different path. Tien and Roshi were forced down the leftmost pathway. Krillin and Chi down the rightmost pathway. Meanwhile, Yamcha was forced down the centermost pathway, alone. Nowhere to go but forward. Chi muttered out, before raising her voice. I expect to see all of you out of here. Stop thinking with just your fists. The Z fighters, now separate, will have to find their way through the maze. Will they be able to slip through the shifting demon's labyrinth of sand? Or will they all be crushed before help can arrive? Yamcha pulls his hand back, pulling the ball backwards before changing his hand's direction, just to hit Gashu again, and again. He begins to roar out in defiance as Gashu was being beaten down with the ball. Grunts of pain would escape the cyan demon of sand as he tried to recede back into said sand. With a clear opening, Dao rushes in, and the blade hidden in his hand makes contact. Ah! Was all Gashu was able to gasp out as he loses his footing, grabbing onto the hand in his chest. Why you stabbed me, I. There's no way I'll be able to leave with you keeping that door closed. Dao states as he twists the blade slowly, before pulling out. Gashu coughed out purple blood, trying to hold himself together, feeling his heart beginning to come undone inside of him. He cried out defiantly, desperately, holding his hand out and reaching for Yamcha. Before he hits the ground, becoming dust. But not of his own volition. He gasps and tries to hold himself up, trying to push himself back inside of himself. No, please. Not like this, not here. His cries were becoming slurred as his blood began to become sand, his digits falling off, and fading into the mass. A final scream of terror escapes the demon as he fades into the sand below. Said sand loses its cyan coloration, becoming regular brownish-gray sand and losing its hold, its properties, its mass. The door was open again. Not much of a fight, yes? Dao smirks as he walks ahead. You should rest, little wolf. Your body's on the verge of collapse. No, Yamcha responds hoarsely as he keeps moving towards the door. They're waiting for me. If you want to die, I can put you down quick. Bite me, was all Yamcha could respond with as they approached the next door. Chi-Chi had led the way, with Krillin trailing behind her rather meagerly. She was in a full sprint, and her sprint was something a bit too fast and tenacious for Krillin to even dream of keeping up with. She was being led by the sound of her baby crying. And God help whoever it was that kidnapped her baby boy. She would skid to a stop right outside of a door and would slam her fists against the metal barrier, bending it after a few strikes, before finally causing the hinges to give way and the door falls open. Gohan. Mama's here, Chi-Chi shouted as she stepped into the large room. The room was made of orange marble, statues of frogs with bullhorns were marking the area. A smirk was coming from the man in the center of the room, on a pedestal standing far above the ground floor. The imposing figure of Musta was ready and waiting for his sordid adversaries, and he seems to have gotten the pipsqueak and the girl. Oh well, better than nothing. Especially since apparently she's the brat's mom. A low chuckle escapes the large froggish creature, who slaps his knee a few times. HM. You here for the brat? You can have him. All he does is cry. Musta lets out another low chuckle before sitting up. Well, that is, if you live through this. He up. The muscular creature jumps from the spot he was at, causing the marbling he lands at to begin cracking under his sheer intensity and weight. Hopping his neck from twisting it left, then right, and exhaling a bit. Where is my son? Chi-Chi questions. Dunno. Somewhere round here. Screaming his stupid head oh. Before Musta could finish he had to pull his head back. The speed at that kick was something he was not expecting. He whistles a tiny bit, admiring her moxie, at the very least. But it was rather clear she was going to fight. So, he'll have to give her some payback. He cocks his hand back before striking right down at her. Smirking as he thinks he just turned her head into a watermelon, and his fist was the sledgehammer. Point. Musta. Now, where's the other oh? Chi-Chi's legs kicked up, catching onto the creature's chest, before she kicked him off with more force than he expected. She then rocks a bit to stand back on her feet, then she attempts to headbutt Musta. She was strong, and a little crazy. This was not what the demon was expecting at all. Maybe you didn't hear me. Where is my son? Chi-Chi punctuated each word with a punch to the stomach. Not getting through the armor until the sun, in which case he could see her rage suddenly fluctuate her power, and he gets sent backwards a bit. Alright, no, not playing these games. You die now. Musta screams in anger, swinging his left hand in response into her stomach, upon contact swiping the side of her head to try making her fall to her side. Chi-Chi however caught herself on her way down, kicking back up, beginning to dodge swipes being sent, positioning herself around, before ducking again and causing Musta's fist to make contact with the side of his stone platform. A scream escapes the bullfrog, and Chi-Chi took another opening to repeatedly strike the demon, before she backs up to avoid his hands slamming against the ground, giving a chance for her to see around the platforms up above. Gohan's somewhere, and she could see the gleam of a bald head. Krillin's getting in a good position to fire from above. She grins at that before returning to dodging the savage attacks. Krillin meanwhile had made his way up above. He's going to need to gather energy, but he's got a technique that could put the demon down. He just wasn't sure which one was the real demon. He only ever saw Chi-Chi fight once before, and right now she's acting like a caged beast fighting for its meal. He'd really rather avoid being directly in battle. He knows his limitations, and he knows his advantages, and right now, his advantage is going to be Destructo Disc. Holding his hand above his head, Krillin keeps his eye on the fight going on below. Energy charging into a swirl in the palm of his hand, focused in a thin line as though he was trying to create a two-dimensional object. He just hopes he can get it to hit with no problem. That's all you got? Chi-Chi questions before slamming her leg into the side of Musta's head. Pathetic. I am the wife of Son Goku, the strongest man on earth. And my father is the Ox King. Warrior's blood naturally comes to me, and I will not be beaten by some frog pretending to be the mighty bull. Another series of kicks make contact, causing Musta to begin losing his patience. Chi-Chi was moving around the area, basically making a joke of the might of the monarchs. The angered demon roars out before slamming his fist right where Chi-Chi's face was supposed to be, only for her to duck, and his arm to embed into the marble wall. Goo. Stuck. Musta shouts as he pulls, the entire throne platform groaning before he stops. Oh no no no, oh god, am I actually trapped? Sucks to be you. Chi-Chi states casually before jumping on his head, then jumping from it as a platform to get above. Chi-Chi scans the area, listening quietly until she hears another sob. With that alone, she became like a missile immediately seeking the false wall Gohan was being kept behind. Her fist plowed right through the thin layer, pulling away at the wall to reveal her son curled up in a corner, missing his hat. There you are. Chi-Chi's voice cracked in relief and grief before she wrapped her arms around her baby boy. You poor thing. Don't worry, Mama's here now. Mom, they killed Mr. Piccolo. Gohan mutters sadly as he clings to her. I wasn't able to do anything. Sadness washes over Chi-Chi as she puts a hand on the back of her son's head, gently combing his hair to soothe him. Gentle sounds of terror and sorrow escape her baby boy, adding more fuel to her fire. Oh Gohan. You're just a baby, know this, none of this should be your fight. Don't worry. I'll get payback for him. Chi-Chi would lift her son up, holding him in her arms before turning around, and suddenly being hit with a heavy backhand. A scream escapes Gohan before his head is grabbed by Musta's arm, which was somewhat crushed, severely damaged from what he had to do to get out of that trap he was put in. Snorts and grunts and growls of anger escaped the large man as he squeezed slowly. Harder and harder as the boy screamed out for help. Chi-Chi, unable to get up with Musta's foot now planted firmly on her chest, pushing down more and more. I want you to watch as I turn your progeny into a fine red mist, and then I'll do the same to you. Musta's voice was trembling with rage as he got ever closer to finishing off Gohan, and then a light breezes by. Woo. Slowly, with a sick grin on his face, Musta turns to face Krillin. The small man staring with a defiant look in his eyes, sweat dripping from him. Just enough defiance for Musta to let go of Gohan, or maybe it was the blood loss that made him give up on trying to pop the boy's head. He raised his good hand up and points it right at Krillin. Ha! Your little light show missed. Musta screamed out, holding onto his chest with his injured hand. No I didn't, Krillin said confusedly to Musta. Yes, it did. Musta denied, even as he felt the blood that was supposed to go to his legs leaking out of his back, then his sides, then he fell over, but his legs didn't follow. This is just me being tired, that's all. Oh my, I think you're going into shock? Krillin mutters out. The only shock that's gonna be felt is when my fingers, in, your, eyes. The pathetic creature growled and groaned as he moved in closer, slowly, before losing the energy to crawl, and falling promptly right off the edge. Chi-Chi. Gohan. Krillin jumped to get closer to the pair. Are you two alright? I'm more than fine. Chi-Chi lied as she tried to pop her back to get the feeling on Musta's size 15s out of her spine. Gohan? I'm so scared, what do I do, Mom? Gohan would return to clinging to his mother, unsure what's happening, unsure what he even brings. I can bring you two back home, then I'll come back here to be with the others, Krillin offered. No, Chi-Chi firmly protested, if you leave to drop us off at home, that's important time lost. I kept up with Froggy over there because he had no refinement in his movements, and I've got my dad's warrior blood, and my mom's giant blood. The others, especially Roshi. They're in danger now. If you didn't save me with that attack, we'd both be dead right now. Then, I guess we gotta try to meet up with everyone. Krillin quietly admitted, not wanting to deny Chi-Chi, but he can tell she was feigning not being hurt by those first hits. The end. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and now we will see you in the next video.